the land, and immediately you've got this very visual growth and productivity boost.
What is in ammoniated fertilizer that's different from regular fertilizer?
Well, prior to that, it was organic
Manure,
fertilizer. It
things
was
like that, compost.
Compost, mostly guano.
Guano, bat
shit, bird manure.
Yeah, we read once that people used to have wars over bat shit. That bat shit was so valuable that people would fight for bat shit.
Good point.
That's where bat shit crazy comes from, apparently.
It was the most efficient way to import nutrients into cropland was guano. All right, but until World War II, ammoniated fertilizer is chemically produced fertilizer.
And what is exactly in it?
Well, it can be a lot of things, but in this case, we're talking about ammonium nitrate, or urea, or maybe anhydrous ammonia.
So it's in super large doses that would normally not exist in compost or in manure or any things like that.
So ammonium nitrate, I think, is 33.5% nitrogen. Urea, I'm pretty sure, is 44% nitrogen. And the best compost or guano that you could find would be way under 10% nitrogen. So it's just like steroids, right?
Got it. So supercharged volumes of nitrogen, and it makes things grow quickly.
In fact, since we're into this, I'll tell you a brief story. So my dad told me that he was born in 1920, so 1946, he'd been 26 years old and taking over the farm. He told me that in 1946, after the war, a salesman came to Bluffton, our little town, and had a fish fry or barbecue or whatever it took to bring the farmers in. He had two 200-pound bags of ammonium nitrate fertilizer that had been made in munitions factories. And they gave every farmer like a 5 or 10-pound bag to take home. And the ask was, go home, put this out on your grass, your pasture, wet it, put water on it, and don't look at it for about 3 days, then come back. And my dad did that. And when he came back, where they put the ammonium nitrate, it was a foot taller and 5 shades greener than the rest of it. And he said, damn, I want the whole farm to look like that. And from 1946 to probably 1996, 50 years, that'd be 50 years, either my dad or I put ammoniated fertilizer on every acre of land we had every single year. Now, the benefit was so obvious. You could see it. You could see it at 30 miles an hour just looking out the window. What you couldn't see is that ammoniated fertilizer oxidized the carbon in the ground, the organic matter in the soil. Oxidized it, right, chemically. It killed the microbes in the soil, not sterilized them, but it was bad for the microbes. It had some other negative chemical impacts, but you couldn't see them. I mean, if you dug around the dirt with your fingers, you wouldn't have seen it.
And at the time, was this a fairly new thing that people were doing? So it was invented in World War II. When did it start being wide-scale implemented on farms?
So it was
post-World War II?
I think it was invented in the 1880s, but it was so expensive, farmers didn't use it until post-World War II when they repurposed the munitions.
I see, and that made it effective to use financially.
Cost-effective. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when these people started doing it, there was no long-term understanding of consequences. They didn't really know what to expect in terms of what you're saying about it oxidizing the carbon. No one knew about all that.
That's exactly right. And really, when I was at the University of Georgia in the 70s, we still didn't know about it. We didn't talk about that. When I was...
So everyone was still just talking about the effectiveness of it then?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was taking soils in the 70s, we talked extensively about soil structure, soil texture, soil chemistry. We never talked about soil biology. And if we did, we were talking about soil fumigants or soil sterilants, because that was an era when germs make you sick.
Right.
Germs are bad. Microbes are germs. Kill the germs.
Right. Yeah. And when did they figure that out? That it's actually that there's soil biology, and that you have to manage that, and that these fertilizers were causing long-term consequences. When was all that? When did they first start sorting that out?
Well, I think it's getting sorted out now.
Now,
I mean,
just now.
Well,
last 5 years, 10 years.
I guess the organic vegetable movement was probably the first harbinger of that in probably the 70s, but it was very fringe and niche. Mm-hmm. It was very vegetable oriented.
And were they aware of the consequences of herbicides back then? Like, what was causing that?
I think we're just now realizing those things. Now,
Yeah.
when we say realize, you got some thought leaders somewhere that have probably been around for a long time. But as far as actual acceptance by the practitioners, I think it's just now happening, and it's really struggling to happen. It's hard to get off of a crutch.
And herbicides are a big crutch, right, for monocrop agriculture.
Anything with side as a last name, side means kill, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, homicide.
That's Latin.
Yeah.
So homicide, herbicide,
Yeah,
pesticide, insecticide, fungicide, nematicide,
Ugh.
sides.
No sides.
No sides.